And hello, how's it going, everyone? 100-day challenge. This is day 19, should be day 20, but Sunday was a bust, so day 19. 100-day challenge, working on my comic, 30 minutes a day at least. Gotta blog it, whatever they call it. Anyway, yeah, I am here, I'm back, got my nasty old orange hoodie back on, and I forgot to turn off that annoying light. Ugh. I really hate that ceiling fan. That's better. Can't tell you how many times I've hit my head on that thing, too. So, anyway, what I thought I would do today would be a little bit different than just filling in some color and stuff. I need to get the ship going, this little sideways view. Here's my concept drawing. So this is the drawing that I did first to do the design. It's kind of good to do your design work in 3/4 views as much as possible. You can do as many views as you can. If you can only have the time to draw one view, try to draw something in 3/4. That gives you enough information of what's going on in the front and on the side that you could use that for reference much later on. So I dropped in the side of the ship, or the my reference drawing of the ship, and I've got a new layer started for drawing. So at any rate, what I'm going to do is use the box method. It's kind of an industrial design drawing technique to put the ship in the correct perspective and kind of build it up. So kind of imagining. Now there's tools inside of this for Clip Studio and other programs as well. But sometimes just doing things the old-fashioned way. You know, and you could even, just to make sure I know what I'm doing, let's backtrack to right about there. That gets me some good lines to use to try to work this thing up. So basically the first part that I want to do is, with the box method, you divide your three-dimensional box. You can divide it almost endlessly. So I can find the center there, and then I can find the center of this one here. So there's the center, there's the center. If I divide that one up, there's the center. So I know kind of in this area right here is where I'm going to start that part of it. So I can go ahead and pull those out. Now this is going to get kind of conglomerated pretty easily, but then you just kind of start sketching. Like, I know this is probably already too long, so I need to go back a ways. So I'll just follow my lines and back things up a bit. So we're kind of getting like a chunky 3D. You know, if I was building this in something like 3D Studio Max or even ZBrush, you'd start out with some sort of chunky 3D mess like this. just to make sure make it easier to see. I'll do a new layer and so there's our basic shape. And basically the perspective that we're going to be drawing this at. Alright, get my regular hecklers in here. Alright, so building off of this basic shape here that I've got, this is where the vent is. So and it's not a perfect, this is a longer shape than what I got here, but I'm still heading in the right direction. And let's see, that's about center. So if I find the middle, and then break it up equally on both sides. I'm just kind of crafting this, kind of carving it out of this weird shape that I've got. Trying to remember, get as close to what the original looks like. So that's recognizable. When you're drawing comics, it doesn't necessarily have to be accurate as much as it needs to be believable. Alright, so if this is this part here. There's that little vent there on the side. I treat the face of this square, and I try to mimic the same thing on the next side. So if I'm going from that corner, I need to be going from this corner and pull that up. That's going to be kind of the chair. So you can see we're kind of building it up as we go along. And make sure. Greetings from the winter wonderland of PGH. Yeah, it's winter here too, but supposedly 40 degrees tomorrow. And then we'll get snow again. It's just the way it is. Some things will never change. Alright, so that's going to be those two saddle posts. And here's our bracket that holds Spaz's little escape pod thing that he lives in. So now I need to address the negative space in here and get the barrel going. So if I do my measurements, so here to here, so right about there is the edge of this part. It's probably sunken in a little bit too. And we'll go ahead and raise things. So I'm going to do another line straight back here. this is this part, and this is inset just a little bit. A lot of this I'm just eyeballing, so don't worry about, if it gets frustrating, just more measurements. And once you get used to doing the measurements, you'll start doing the measurements less and less and less, and then you won't have to do the measurements quite as much. So here is where this dips down. I'm not going to see this shape here will continue on down to the base of this other square side, which is all covered up now, but you can remember it here in the initial little blue line sketch. So yeah, we dip that down, and there's this other thruster. There's that thruster, and right about here where the band is, we've got this bracket. So I'll put the bracket in, and then here is where this pod sits. Now the pod sits up higher, so I'm going to go to all four of my corners here. And raise this up. Now, because of what I did with the, if I bring these back, I've got my radiating lines here. I want to make sure that I'm being correct with this. So I'll just match, and I'm kind of eyeballing it to right between those two zeros on the 2000. So yeah, I'm already kind of breaking that up too much. So we will continue it like that. Alright, but I'm still using boxes, and this is a circular barrel. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the center, so I'm going to go from corner to corner. That finds my center there. And I'm just going to kind of do that. I might even change to a brighter color, just so I can kind of see, yeah, where that is. Looks a little on the high side. So minor course correction, another advantage to doing this digitally, even though I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. Those of you who, if you're watching at the Pittsburgh Comic Shop or wherever you are, if you are in art school and there is a transportation design class, even if you're taking like crafts or if you're doing figure drawing, something like that, try to take an entry-level transportation design class if it's offered, because they will teach you the things they don't teach you in your artsy classes, where it's all like, draw how you feel, and there's a place for gesturing, especially with an organic figure. You really want to do as much gesturing as you can. But when it comes to doing structure, buildings, vehicles, anything that has a structure to it that's rigid, you really need to learn this type of drawing. And if you can't take any classes, I highly recommend looking up Scott Robertson. Used to work for Hot Wheels. He taught at College for Creative Studies for a little while. I believe it's him. There's some kids' books on how to draw Hot Wheels that he's done anyway. But he teaches this method, and he's a much better teacher than I am at it. that's pretty much where I learned it. So put the little pod window in there, and then now it's just some of the other accoutrements. The hose, got the little flag coming off of it. So that's coming along pretty nicely. We're building a good structure. We're kind of only 15 minutes into this. I'm going to hide that initial blue line again. And then we want to get back into getting this fore end and this nose cone and this seat and all this. So I'm going to go ahead and just eyeball the ribs in this seat. Hopefully you guys can see okay. Again, we're going to this edge. We're not going past it. We're going to this edge for the seat. So, it kind of reclines back. It's a nice, comfortable chair. Now, since I've cut this out, I'm going to get rid of, I'm going to use my opacity, my density. I'm going to bring the density down to this airbrush, turn it to an eraser, and just kind of go in and lightly, I don't want to get rid of it entirely, so that way I can start to bring in this other side piece. Alright, and once it's all said and done, it'll go back to blue line, and then we'll finish it off. So I got this little wing. So if we bring our line straight out from the corners here, which it's close enough, it'll tell me where I'm going. I can build another. There's the wing. There's nuggets. This thing's partially destroyed. I mean, again, if you've read the new issue, the new episode up online, I do a little did you know thing about this vehicle. It's all cobbled together from other parts that they've come across over their adventures. So when we're seeing Spaz and Dinosaur Man in the webcomic, aside from that, they've had adventures before. So yeah, this is their cobbling together. Spaz is going to put this ship together. All right, so let's do my favorite part of this whole thing. And it's this nose cone, which Dinosaur Man is just kind of, painted up to look like his face in a crude caveman style. I really want this to be a toy someday. So I'm going to switch up my colors just so it's easy for me to not be disorganized. And I might even just do a new layer. Alright, so again, we're going to try to put this in a box. And to do that properly, I'm going to zoom out and go back in. I'm tracing this other line here to find out where in this position my vanishing point is. So from there I can draw, let's see. Don't remember where it is. I wish there was a way to like just drop in an indicator. So basically just before 7200 here. So just before 7200. Just before 7200. All right, that's enough lines for that. So I've got, it's a bit wider, so we'll come out, if that's the edge of the chair, we'll come out to here. And this is the same measurement here and here. It's just in perspective, so it's going to look different. Then I'll drop that down. And I'm assuming it goes down a little bit further. So I'll drop it down again. There's that baseline. I don't want it to go that far, but I'm going to use this kind of an under part of the chair and just get as close as possible so that we can build another box. And that box is going to extend off into space. Should have plenty of room, and once I get this pretty close, if I need to move this out, I can still move it out. It's still going to be pretty close in the correct perspective, even if I have to move this drawing around a little bit. I might even shrink it down, make it a little bit smaller, because we have Spaz's head here. Looking back, I mean, that's a pretty good one, but I might want to move it this way. All right, so our simple shape here is kind of this sloping thing. Sloping from the corner of the box. It's a smooth shape. And use a lot of ellipses. If you're not using boxes, you end up using a lot of ellipses if you're measuring. So that's pretty good. I might give it a little bit more sway there. All right, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge these two together, and I'm going to go ahead and move the drawing out. Just so I get enough space to work. And if I need to, I can always remeasure my horizon line where my vanishing point. So now my vanishing point is basically up here just before 480, so I can bring out some more construction lines in the correct all right, so we'll go ahead and continue this shape down. It's going to slope up a little bit. We'll have it meet right there at that line. Now, if that doesn't look right, I can always make another line and meet it up there, but I think that looks pretty good. And we got this little snub nose cut out, so again, I want to find the center, so I'm going to go from corner to corner and just kind of do a nice smooth arc. That finds my center. So I can divide that in half, and then I'll do another line matching up with these perspective lines. Draw an X. It's not quite right as it's sloping down, but I'll get it close enough. And I'm just going to kind of fudge and divide those two. So that gets me my cutout shape. My eye is telling me it looks a little wonky, but that's something maybe I can fix in the inking part. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of put the guns in like that. And we got the ball on top. Again, if I find this somewhere's my center, I'll have it come off right about there. Just going to build that off of the center part. Fudge these things in. Yeah, let's see. We'll go right before 480 and just... No, that's way over there. Yeah. As long as it's close. So, drop that down, and then there's all these machine gizmo stuff. And to me, it looks like I've drawn it just a little too big. So what I think I'll do is I cut this part out. I keep it kind of in the same size. Because this looks a lot longer than when I had it. So pretty cool. All right, so that's pretty much the sketch. If there needs to be any refinements, it can always be done elsewhere. All right, so if I go ahead and just zap that all to blue, I should have enough information now that I can get most of this drawn. I'm not going to do the bars just yet. Well, yeah, I should do the bars, but I'm going to do it on a different layer so I'm not confusing what I've been drawing so far. So let's just do... Because you get muddy sometimes and then you can change colors, but it still ends up looking like it's hard to tell where anything goes. Alright, so if I kind of just head off into that sunset vanishing point area there, and then as long as this is... We're not going to see as much of it as we would the other one. That's pretty close. I'm reasonably happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and hide. I should be able to see that. I just don't want to destroy what I've already worked on. There we go. I'm going to erase a little bit just so that it is easier for me to see that line. I want to erase what's going on inside of here. So that's a little easier to see, and I can get rid of that. Alright, so we'll drop that down, colorize it, Got a new layer. I can start inking. I'm going to get a nice smooth lines with high stabilization. And just going to get started on this part. That is too big of a brush. Alright. So now I can just follow those construction lines that I've already put down. And turn my canvas. I actually don't see that part. Three teeth, okay. Other project I was working on, that story is drawn and inked. I'm in the coloring phase on that, so I'll be very happy to get that done. I'm going to do a windscreen layer, I think, for this. That'll free up a lot more time. Now, the secret to drawing anything is to know it so well that you don't have to do these construction lines. I highly recommend still doing some construction lines when you're doing vehicles, structures, and things like of that nature. I know when I was a young student, high school age, drawing for the first time, I'd get like, oh, I want to draw a cool eye, and I'd get all, details and just, I want to do all this. I have nothing else to show for the rest of the drawing. So if you start drawing outward like that, it gets all wonky and you end up with bad anatomy. And the same is true for, drawing vehicles. This vehicle's anatomy, its perspective is okay. It's not perfect. But it's going to be believable enough for the purposes of my comic. This is a cartoon comic. It's not it's not on the level of a serious, well, it's going to have some serious content, but it's not drawn to be realistic, in other words. I'm not trying to take myself too seriously. But you can see how, just in this example, because I know we're going to be running, I'm not going to get this whole thing inked before this episode's over. But you can see from this example, going from nothing, doing all of that prep work with the perspective lines, building a box. And you can do this with people too. You can put anything in a box as long as you can divide it up by doing the X from corner to corner, finding it. You can infinitely divide it up. And again, look into people like Scott Robertson and some of the tutorials that he's got. I'm sure he's on YouTube to learn how to do this industrial design model of drawing. Because I know when I was in art school at CCS, a lot of the teachers had this idea, and it's in high school. It's a very liberal idea of not trying to teach technique, but teach feeling. I don't know, because I could never nail any of my teachers down to getting a technique. And unfortunately, the drawing teacher that taught the technique, I never had him. But he had people doing photoreal graphite renderings, and I was still stuck in, some outline shapes and You know, the poor teacher doing the best she can, but, you know, she's an old bleeding heart hippie, and it was just all about emotion with her. And I'm screaming up and down inside, like, I'm paying thousands of dollars. I need technique. So if that's the kind of stuff that you're getting in school, kids, you know, demand better. Because there is a way, there's a how-to. Anybody can draw. Anybody can draw. But it's just like cooking. It's just like writing a novel. There's rules involved. There's techniques. There's tools. You just got to have the intestinal fortitude, the willpower to force yourself to sit down and learn all that stuff. Because it will get drudgery. It will get boring. You'll get tired of it. But you definitely want to put yourself through the ringer like that, because you'll come out better in the end. You'll have endurance, which a lot of your peers, you know, if you guys are millennials, young millennials, your peers are all going to be lazy losers. They're going to all want an easy way out. Well, maybe not all, but a vast majority of the common people. They want to do things as easy as possible. And if your competency level is that of a person that has, you know, put in the time, the hours, if you actually put in the time, the hours, you're going to see on the other end, your quality will get you the job, whereas the other person, even if they have some sort of natural innate ability to it, their work ethic and lack of is going to keep them in the unemployment line, or, you know, serving food at Denny's when they'd rather be drawing. If I wanted to get this any more, you know, more accurate, I would do it as a 3D model and probably just trace it. That's the only true way to make sure that it's going to be exactly the same in every frame. But then you start losing, you know, the artist's touch. You lose all of the natural look to it. When you're reading comics there in the shop, if you notice something and say, you know, it just doesn't look quite right, it looks kind of stiff, it was probably a 3D model that the artist just kind of drew over. You want to put in the work as much as you can. Strip. Oh, I forgot, this has a missing panel. I certainly try to keep in mind kind of the junkiness of the Millennium Falcon, because, you know, like in sort of any sort of expanded universe scenario, they're constantly probably rebuilding it, putting new parts on it. So I kind of wanted to keep that idea going. We might see a little bit of that fin popping out just right about there. Yeah, that kind of goes, that's close enough. So, just been thinking, after I finish the 100-day challenge, might just start doing some tutorial videos. You know, I got a master's in art education. I guess maybe I should just use it for something. I've been wanting to do a book, but have not been able to sit down and put the time into it that I'd like. So maybe 2018 will be the year for that. If I can get my Patreon grown to where I don't have to go out so much, I could stay home and I could get a book done pretty quickly. You know, I need to be able to just work on that. Well, might be able to get this all inked. I'm over time already on the 30-minute mark, but I usually go to like 40, 45. I try not to make these things go an hour. All right, well, hey, let's do a windscreen layer, and then call it a day. Get rid of that. All right, cool. So there you go, guys. This was my initial concept over here on the right in a 3/4 view, and that was not the proper perspective, so I couldn't reuse that asset, so I decided I needed to draw a new one. And so let me bring this panel back. Let me go ahead and get the bike out of there. Clean this up. And I'll probably leave that flag so it sticks out. I think that'll be kind of neat. Stick out over the panel border. I love breaking panel borders whenever I get a chance. So cool. There's the bike, and that completes that scene. And I did finish up the colors on the epic crash scene. I added some smoke, put some transparent color over the black lines to kind of fade things in and out. Gave the whole thing a nice weird rosy glow to it. So that looks, I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. So tomorrow we'll probably be doing some more coloring. I'm going to try to have some flats done ahead of time because that's the most boring part of the coloring process. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this part. Seeing something drawn completely from scratch in perspective using a box model. I encourage you to give it a try yourselves. And definitely, yes, seek out resources like Scott Robertson. The Drawing Hot Wheels book is a real simple way to start out, especially for you younger kids. Look for that. But anyway, tomorrow 1 o'clock again. And a reminder, this weekend I'll be leaving for St. Louis Wizard World. So there may not be a Friday episode. Probably won't be a Friday episode because I'll be driving and unloading. But I will check in on Facebook Live probably. I'll have my my book, my Surface Pro. So I'll still be drawing panels every day. Still gonna at least put 30 minutes work into my comic every day. Just may not get the video done. Anyway, so have a good night, have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Bye.